As soon as she turns it on. Are we good to go? Welcome to our regular city council meeting. It's Tuesday, May 2nd at 7 p.m. and glad to see everybody here tonight. So as for a roll call, we'll dispense with that. Everybody is present. I'd like to ask if someone would lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance.
I will.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd also like to ask if someone would offer an invocation or an inspirational thought.
Mayor, I would like to.
Thanks, Art.
In the recent newsletter, it was Betsy's Turn to Write. She references a poem called The Dash, and I'd like to read that. It's by Linda Ellis. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For the dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them know what that little line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remember this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of things they say about how you spent your dash?
Thank you. With that, we'll move on with the meeting. Thanks, Art. Thanks, Betsy, and for giving Art that good idea. So, and we'll begin with our consent agenda. We'll start with minutes. We have the minutes of April 4th.
Mary, you want to go back to conflict of interest?
Sure.
Okay.
I wasn't sure we had anything to be of conflict, but I'll ask. Do you have a conflict of interest you need to declare?
No.
No.
Oh, you nitpicker.
It's on the agenda, sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Thanks for catching that. On the consent agenda, the minutes of April 4th work session, April 4th council meeting, April 18th work session, and April 18th council meeting. If you've all read them, they've all been online for days now. Is there anything that you saw or that you needed to change from what we see in those minutes? Then I would then move to the next item, the bills, the city expenditures that were listed on there. Dave, it's written all over your face. Do you have a comment on it?
No.
Okay. Then we'll move on. The next one is Police Department out-of-state training request. Did you read the reasonings behind it? Are there any questions? I know Chief Hurst was behind it, and this is a formality that we not only certify our policemen, but, you know, they have to bring anything that goes out of state to this council. So, any questions on any of them? Then, were we going to include the surplus items in the?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
included
so
in the consent right now.
the surplus items included just a few things: the old ambulance, the bed of a pickup truck, and the cot,
Yep.
the striker cot that's in an ambulance. So, are there any questions about any of those items that were there? Feel pretty good. And what I'd like to do is entertain a motion for the consent agenda items and go from there.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We'll have a roll call on it. Councilmember Montoya,
Aye.
Councilman Adcock,
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway,
Aye.
Councilman Meekum,
Aye.
Councilman Hathaway.
Aye.
Consent agenda items pass. So now we'd like to go into the public forum, bid openings, awards, and appointments. And the first thing is a recognition of Volunteer of the Month. So, Mrs. Olson, you have the stand.
Do you want the volunteer of the month to come up, or do you want me to say this first?
Oh, after you embarrass him first.
Okay, all right.
He embarrasses easily.
Well, I don't feel necessarily qualified to do this, except that I sure get to be introduced to a lot of people who are willing to just help and volunteer in this community, and it's wonderful to get to know them. Our May 2023 Volunteer of the Month is Adam McMurray. Adam has been helping build our new Prospector Park and trail system. When asked why he has been willing to donate time and equipment, he said, "It's been a dream being able to come help create something that will be used for generations. I am so grateful I've had an opportunity to do it." When Adam was younger, he raced mountain bikes for a time, adding to his love of mountain biking and this new trail park. Mayor Olson recognizes how much Adam has done to further this project and appreciates his willingness to continue with the construction process. He stated, "Adam brings his family up as he donates time and is a big part of the success in building this bike park. Not only does he donate time, but also machinery and expertise in the excavation process. He is humble and willing to help at the drop of a hat. He is just a great man." Adam grew up in and around Santaquin and graduated from Payson High. He and his wife Bethany have lived in Payson for the past Santaquin. He and his wife Bethany have lived in Santaquin for the past 10 years, and they are raising their two children, Landon and Mackenzie, in our community. In his free time, Adam enjoys exploring and going on adventures with his family. They enjoy riding mountain bikes together as well. Thank you, Adam, for your willingness to help complete this park and trail. Your volunteer spirit has made a difference in our community.
Speech.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You don't know what to say?
Never do.
No, you don't.
I just would say thank you for all that everyone here does, and especially you on this project up there, making it come to life possible.
You know, it's people like you that really are the backbone of this city. 40 years ago, when we were in the middle of flooding, there were volunteers that came out of everywhere. And we haven't had to do that so much yet this year, a little bit. However, the amount of people that have shown up, the thousands of hours that have been donated, and even equipment that we put up on the mountain and said, let's go.
Let's do it.
You have made a difference being there, and I'm just proud to know that I was able to work shoulder to shoulder with you. Well, elbow to shoulder.
As well, thank you. It's been a great opportunity with the whole committee and everybody that works hard, and I love the opportunity. Remember it forever.
You know what? When people get involved with the city and they love what they're doing, it makes all the difference in the world. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Are we gonna get, bring your family up, let's get a picture.
Jason.
Take the picture from right here.
He's already been instructed, Mayor.
She was instructed.
There should be a percent on the top.
All right.
Yeah, there should. Is there not?
1, 2, 3.
If it's touch screen, can you just zoom in like you would with a phone? Ooh, way not too big.
Well, there you go. Oh, perfect.
I don't know how big you get it. You can
That's
get it
fine,
bigger.
yeah.
You probably just should be able to. Screen too.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, it doesn't work that way.
There, you've got a hand in the back.
There you go. You should be able to just do that.
Can I just say that I'm Adam's neighbor down just a little bit. And this guy doesn't just volunteer for the city, he volunteers for people in the city.
Yeah.
I mean, he puts in time and effort all over the place for everybody. He never turns people down. He's a good guy. His family supports him in everything he does. He's
That's the
got a
only true thing he
wonderful
said.
wife. But he is just an amazing guy.
Thank you. You are right. Thank you. Oh, okay. One other thing is Healthy Utah Community Award. John?
Right, so I get the privilege and honor today to recognize Santaquin as receiving a Healthy Community designation, and it is by Get Healthy Utah, which is a nonprofit organization working to improve healthy eating and active living in Utah. Get Healthy Utah works with schools, workplaces, healthcare, and community leaders to influence system-level change and provide better opportunities for health. So they are now throughout the state and have recognized, I believe, just at this last conference, their 30th member. That should be us. We'll be the 30th member, 30th city to be recognized for this. And so what does that entail to be a healthy community? Well, it entails the city taking ownership and actually saying we're going to do A, B, and C, and then stick to it. And then after 3 years, we get some new things that we need to accomplish, kind of like setting goals that are to benefit the residents of the community. Some of the ones that we focused on now include providing free and low-cost community programs. One of those being access to the mountains, right? Mountain biking and hiking and things like that for residents. Offering a city employee wellness program, incentivizing a grocery store to come to a small community, and creating an active transportation plan are just a few examples of things that Santaquin has said, this is what we're doing to promote health and wellness. And so we also want to give special thanks for Councilmember Montoya for having a vision several years ago. As this program was just starting, she could see that was something that Santaquin needed to do, and we just had to cross a couple T's and dot a couple I's to finish a couple projects to be eligible for this. But we appreciate her leadership, and Mayor and City Council for your support on this as well. And of course, with Community Service Department Recreation, that's exactly what we do every day, is providing programs for all ages, and we'll continue to do that with your support as well. So thank you. Would you like to get a picture with that?
You. We'll get the whole council down there.
We'll do a picture.
We'll get a group picture and, sell prints.
Okay, sounds good. Let's do it. Everyone come out for a quick picture. Thank you.
I want January. I'll take February. I'm good.
We did this in St. George.
Just jump over the desk.
You did all right.
No.
Yeah, please take it out of the bag for the picture.
I bet people do.
There you go.
Oh, really?
Come on in.
Come on in.
Remember,
Picture.
I'm
Or
sure
profit.
this would probably be milling around.
This is a big enough group, I don't think I can get that out. It just shows how active and healthy you are. All right, 1, 2, 3.
Thanks, Bert.
Yeah.
Light out.
Yeah.
It sucks the light out. Thank you. Public forum tonight, we have one person that signed up, Eileen. So, would you like to speak, address, talk to the council, talk to the citizens of Santaquin, or otherwise?
My name's Eileen Miller. I represent the Utah Valley Home Builders Association. And I just wanted to thank Santaquin and particularly Norm Bigley for forwarding your IFA and your IFFP report. We reviewed it and found it to be very much in order. We were very impressed with the way that JUB had written their report. I read many, many of them. And their report particularly that was of interest, and maybe this is my background with the state, I don't know, but it was really refreshing to see that when they made a statement or come to a conclusion, especially on their tables, it showed the reference to the state code. And so it was very, very conclusive and very well written. And I had a couple of questions. I was able to call Norm. He cleared them up. They were in reference mostly to the ADU situation. And he and I had a little bit of a conversation about measured growth. And I was so happy to hear that there's a city who actually is thinking ahead and having a good view of what they need to do in the future. So I appreciate the cooperation and the sharing of your reports and your information. And all I can say is it's been a kumbaya night tonight. I'm going to add to it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Eileen. Nobody else signed up for public forum, but I would ask if somebody has anything that they would like to state tonight. You can have up to 5 minutes if you would like.
Sure.
So,
Me?
I guess.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. My name's Daniel Bowles, live here in town. I want to address the letter that I sent to all of you last week. And if you haven't had a chance to see it, I'll hand you one now. Looks like you all had a chance.
Yep.
The topic is freeway noise. My wife Ingrid and I moved here 3 years ago from Payson. We raised all of our girls there in Payson for, I think, over 30 years. We love the community. We're very happy being here. And we always called it a quiet community. And then I started hearing all the freeway noise and hearing the semis use their engine brakes as they come down the hill from Nephi and et cetera, et cetera. And then I started looking at all of the development that we have going on. Most of it's at the south end of town, and there's some at the north end, and a lot of it is, 10 feet off of the freeway. So the drift of my letter is simply to, first of all, acknowledge that we have a real situation with freeway noise going right through our community, and there are ways to mitigate the noise as much as is possible that have been used in other communities. These are not the suggestions that I gave. They are nothing new. They've been used a lot of other places nearby, of course, Payson and Santaquin. The engine brake situation, you can see those signs in different communities as well, and then the reduced speed. So I wanted to formally request whoever's in charge of doing the dance with the UDOT boys to fill out a whatever application request to have the sound barrier walls constructed and these other items established so we can reduce our freeway noise. That's pretty much it. Be happy to field any questions, or if there's a status, if someone's already doing this in the city, that'd be great to know about as well.
personally, I've talked with them, and when a freeway is built, you know, they assess what is there at the time. And if there are homes and they go through and take land and otherwise, they put a wall up because, you know, they're there second. If it's later, then that's a whole new ball game, and they don't compare apples to oranges, and that's what they told me straight up. Now, you know, can you go back to them because they control that, and can we go back to them and say what can we do? That's certainly a topic that we're aware of now that it's been brought up at this point, and I'm more than happy to talk to them. We've got a pretty good relationship with all of the district people that are over this area, but you know, to go to that expense cuts into their budget so far. Even if they promised us, I'll bet the answer is we'll consider it in 40 years because that's the way they deal with it. You know, could we as a city do something? We can't afford that wall. We can't afford putting trees in there to cut that down. So I don't know the solution yet. I'm not ready to just say, hey, we won't talk to them about it, because you do bring up a couple of good valid points. Number one to me is the reduction of those air brakes or the
Engine brakes.
Engine brakes,
Yep.
and that would help. But we did bring that up at one time, and they were just not willing to listen to us.
Yeah, I know that the noise with the engine brakes has been broached numerous times with previous administrations with the UDOT, and I don't know that it's gone anywhere.
Yeah. See, I hear the railroad all the time, you know, clear up where I live, and yet so does everybody else in town. Because I'd be amazed if everybody couldn't hear 2 o'clock in the morning when that went through, and you know, they're just hauling coal for now. So I just want to tell you that we're continuing to do this. It's not a priority this week, but it is something that's on the table and something we'll continue to talk with them about. And next chance I get, I'll bring up the engine brakes thing too and see if they'll discuss that.
Thank you, Mayor, and that's the purpose of the letter, is to at least initiate some kind of dialogue and see what possibilities there are.
Yeah.
With the new development, the houses and the townhouses there in the south end, those weren't there obviously when the freeway was put in, and I mean literally they're 20 feet away from the freeway. So I think we could make a good case that whole development from our south exit coming up on the the east side or whatever, the freeway, that's all new and very, very, very close to the freeway. I think we could make a good case. Of course, that's just me being optimistic. The other dynamic with the engine brake situation, you know, the reality is traffic coming from the south, from Nephi going north, they've been going, the posted is 80, which means they're all going 85 or more, right? And then they hit Payson, and then the other dynamic is we have a downhill, a huge, big downhill. And so the trucks have been going 85, and now they're going downhill, and that's why they use the engine brakes, because, oh my gosh, there's a hill, and I'm going 90 or 85, and they realize that they have to start slowing down. So I think there are some unique characteristics with our location here that we could get somebody's attention. But anyway, so that's the nature of the letter, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll work on it.
If you need a citizen to go with you to talk to you, then I'd be happy to volunteer.
Okay,
Couldn't hurt.
maybe we'll have them here and have the citizens come here and talk.
Even better. I know they do sound testing. I know they
Yeah.
do that all the time. They do the speed testing for lights, but they also do sound.
They're doing an evaluation right away, and they're looking at the whole interchange. And so there's construction ahead, there's all kinds of things, and you know, given the right trigger, boy, your wish may happen, but I wouldn't guarantee anything. All I would say is we will bring up everything. Okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, anything else? Building permits.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. So Norm's put the report up on the board. Calendar year wise, we are exactly a third of what we were this time last year. We're up to 52 total residential dwelling units.
Was that last year?
So
Calendar year.
this year is 52. Last year, this time we were 156.
Oh, gotcha.
Calendar year.
Okay.
So this is calendar
I'm
year.
not able to read the numbers clearly from over here, so yeah.
That's calendar year.
I see that it's calendar year. Thank you.
Normal scroll down, and we are less than a quarter of what we were this time last fiscal year. So we created this report to help the council, obviously, with your responsibility to oversee the budget. So yeah, we've gotten a little bit of influx lately, but still a little bit down right now. And then we have a number of new business licenses that Norm will have up on the screen. Again, they're all home occupations, so I won't go through each individual one, but with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about business licenses or building permits.
Okay. Then, resolutions and ordinances. So, like to move ahead with this. Number one, the adoption of the updated Santaquin City Sanitary Sewer Master Plan. This is part of what Eileen was referring to, and this is a quick, easy read. You can sit down and in a matter of about 48 hours read through it, and after 72, digest it, and 24 hours later, you'll forget it. Okay? There is a tremendous plethora of detail, numbers, and everything else. But you know what? It's a good report, and it is thorough. And it justifies and looks at everywhere where we could be weak and where we do have action items that we need to take on, where there are costs that are also watched over closely by the state, because this is a state report that we're doing, but it's also our master plan for going forward. How do we ensure that everybody's toilet flushes tomorrow? And this is critical stuff. You know, nobody would care about anything in this world if the toilet's all finished for the day and we're done for tomorrow. So I applaud the efforts of our staff, our engineering staff, our reclamation staff, as well as the report that was well written by JUB. I don't know, rather than go into detail with it, Norm, is there anything else?
No, I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, it is a very detailed report. It gets us from today as far as our sewer system, everything from collections to treatment to storage and disposal of the water. As you know, we have a water reclamation facility. It talks about all kinds of upgrades that are needed there to be able to continue to have added and needed capacity in the future. Talks about the impact fee facility plan, talks about the 10-year horizon of what we anticipate. Again, those are all anticipated numbers as far as growth. You know, sometimes we've seen with the building permits, the growth happens faster. Sometimes, like right now, it happens a little slower. But, and then the IFA, the impact fee analysis, is something that was done by Zions Bank in concert with JUB. And again, a pretty detailed report. I would, again, as we mentioned during the work session, that the impact fee will be going up about 14% for a single-family home, a normal size home for either single-family or a multifamily, and then from there it can change for everything from commercial to other uses and other things that we have in the city.
Wait a minute. When you say that, when you say the impact fee is going up 14% for the homes, I want to make sure that everybody understands that's for new homes that are
Right.
coming in.
That is correct.
And it's the residents that are here that have paid for all of that infrastructure for the whole system, it's not going to affect you in any way unless you go build a new home in the town. However, it's very thorough, and it is, I checked so many of those numbers and cross-checked what they were doing, making sure that we didn't miss and have any cost coming back to the citizenry as a whole. And I felt like it was very well presented and very well covered. I didn't find a mistake, but
Yeah,
I'm not perfect.
The operational costs are what you're talking about for the existing residents.
Yeah.
The impact
Yeah.
fees are for new residents, for new impacts to either buy into the existing infrastructure that we have or to help build new infrastructure to handle that capacity. So that's a good distinction. Again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on the report. I know we talked about a couple of questions that Councilmember Hathaway had in the work session. You can go back and look at that, or we can address them again here if you feel like that's needed, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Recalling that this is the adoption of the master plan, the IFFP and IFA, and 90 days would be the soonest that we can adopt the increase in the impact fee for single-family homes or for any others.
So
change.
I would entertain a motion to adopt this ordinance number 0501-2023.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Hathaway,
Aye.
Councilman Meekum,
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway,
Aye.
Councilman Adcock,
Aye.
Councilman Montoya.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll get that rolling. Resolution 0502-2023 about the Orchards Development Agreement Amendment. And so this is has a couple of things in it. So why don't we go through it? If there's any questions, they could also refer to our work session where we talked about this a little more as well.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, as the Mayor mentioned, we talked about this in the work session. This is a proposed amendment to a development agreement for the Orchards development. I should say we have Aaron Jensen here, who's the developer for this. The map that Norm has on the screen right now is really the two areas left for development in that subdivision. There's actually 3 parcels, but the little purple parcel is so small it's just kind of a technicality. But yeah, this really is a preference type of a question tonight. Mr. Aaron Jensen's proposed some modifications to the layout of some of the residential units. There is a reduction in the number of townhomes, but the number of apartments is the exact same. It'd just be a consolidation of some of the buildings. There's a modification of some of the amenities, a couple additional pickleball courts on the east side of Center Street. So that's really what this proposed amendment is addressing is those couple things that the developer would like to modify with the development. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or provide any further clarification as you'd want me to for the public's sake. Or Aaron Jensen is here if you have questions for him.
I don't have a question, but does anyone have one for Aaron? Have you looked over these changes? Do we feel like it's a good way to go?
What's the total open space in the current agreement?
In the current agreement, it's less than what's here. We added open space when we consolidated the townhomes, or the apartments. Because we had 5 buildings before.
Right.
Now we only have 2. So open space increased. I'd have to look at a plat to tell you an actual
So
number.
it's probably somewhere around 15% and increased.
Yeah, so in your packet, we provided really the proposed development agreement amendment, which showed some new exhibits of what they'd want to do with open space and amenities. Norm's just put up on the board what the current recorded and approved development agreement shows. So I think the major changes is on the west side of Center Street. There's a road, if you want to highlight that, Norm, that road would go away and really end up opening up that area for more open space. And then again, it kind of rearranges the layout of some of the townhome units that are in that area on the west side. On the east side, really what open space has opened up is those top two orange apartment buildings would be consolidated into one building, and the bottom three would be consolidated kind of about centered where you see that access road come in. That again kind of opens up a little bit more open space because those buildings are put together rather than spread out in that private open space area. So,
And besides actual square footage, the pickleball courts are what we're adding to the apartment complex, so that'd be an additional amenity that we think will get a lot
Instead
of
of volleyball, right?
use. We had some playgrounds in the old one.
yeah, I don't think they ever had basketball or volleyball over there. They did on the
volleyball
west side.
was another parcel that we don't own inside this development.
So again, this
Okay.
is, if you look at the what we've got here, this is the original one, and then this is so that's the overall, this is the one that's on so you can see by consolidating those buildings, it opens up quite a bit more open space around there instead of having little alleyways between the buildings. I believe they're still having a pavilion. They're still going to do a tot lot and another pavilion, and then again adding the pickleball courts. This is the east side of Center Street, and then if I go to the next, there's again, it's kind of a little. It's a little disjointed because really the only thing that's being represented now is what's left to develop, where the original one had the whole of what was being developed in there. But again, consolidation, you can see that road. This actually is beneficial for the city because that road actually has a sewer line that runs through there, a city sewer line that would then just be underneath some open space, some green space. So it makes better use of that than having it be a road, for instance. And again, I believe there are 3 or 4 fewer townhomes being proposed on this west side than what they have right to do right now today. So they have lost a couple of units there to be able to do this plan, but they feel like that it is a better layout and a better amenities plan for what they're proposing.
And then we tried to split our parking up more on the west side stuff with the townhomes and single family to spread it out.
Yeah.
So people aren't walking as far.
Okay, any other questions, anything? Then I would entertain a motion to accept this resolution from Orchards Development.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Councilman Hathaway,
Aye.
Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway.
Aye.
Councilman Adcock.
Aye.
Councilmember Montoya.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Resolution 0503-2023, the Municipal Wastewater Planning Program Report.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we talked about this in the work session. This is every other year, the state requires us to fill out this planning program that we have for our wastewater system. Again, you know that we just went through the master plan and adopted that. This is really a reporting on the backside of things to talk about how we're functioning, making sure that we're meeting all of our permit requirements, et cetera. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but if you have any questions about any kind of the technicalities or the technical side of it, I'm happy to help with that or answer any questions that you have.
We good with it? We've gone through a lot of information on that. Then I would entertain a motion for Resolution 0503.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. Councilmember Montoya.
Aye.
Councilman Adcock.
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway.
Aye.
Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman Hathaway.
Aye.
Okay. The Griffin Deferral Agreement. Now, this is second east and third south.
Third east, third south.
Third east, third south, up on the corner. The old
Right.
Bob Steele residence.
Yes,
Okay?
sir.
Yeah.
So I had some concerns about this deferral agreement.
Can you state your name, sir, please?
I'm Andrew Griffin.
Okay.
I'm homeowner at 270 South. So I'm requesting an exception or a revision or an amendment regarding the city code that's requiring property owners to take the burden of development of sidewalks, gutters, extension of road base, and development of storm drains when initiating this singular division. This code places undue burden on citizens trying to subdivide a residential lot. According to a quote I obtained on May 1st, 2023, the improvements the city is requiring for this subdivision to move forward would total $96,720. At this time, my lot has a fair market value of approximately $105,000. So far, I've invested $28,000. It's $28,600 obtaining mortgage release, surveys, and city fees for this land subdivision. I propose this cost be waived or reconsidered, as the city has indicated existing homes and lots not undergoing a subdivision would be grandfathered in should the city decide to build these improvements. If rejected, could the city please give a specific amount the homeowner would be responsible for? Yeah.
Thank you. That's pretty good. And I understand it. I didn't set that rule. I just inherited it. However, I watched a council member go through this same thing. I wondered if he would like to make a comment.
Well, the city doesn't have a plan yet for their stormwater, so we don't want to have you put in curb and gutter now and pay for it,
Right.
and then have it be in the wrong place.
Correct.
So the option that I had as I subdivided my lot was to pay the money up front and give it to the city and hope it was enough and used it correctly, or to sign the deferral agreement and wait until the plans are in place so that the city knows exactly what we want to do with stormwater, so it all flows and functions correctly together. And so that was my option, to defer rather than to come up with the money initially.
Let me answer just a little more further too, and you can help me on this, but part of the thing that we've had to look at is a pioneer village that has become a city, which is now becoming a city of nearly 19,000 people. And the outer rings of this city where there were farms before, or open fields, have been developed with a storm drain process included in them, which was where they spent those $90,000, because that core area of town, the 4 blocks by 4 blocks that are in the center, actually represented in 2022 $88 million. Is that something what that was?
$28 million.
$28 million to put storm drain, curb and gutter, and sidewalk in that. Now, if we put it all off and a few years down the road we go, well, the city can go ahead and pay for that. Well, all those residents that live in the outlying areas, they've already paid for their curb, gutter, and sidewalk as part of their building costs that were incurred. What we're trying to do with this, as I understand it, is make sure that all of the people that live within town aren't being paid for in the center of town by everybody else that's already paid the bill. And that's why it exists. So where do we go from here?
So can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you say you're asking for an exception? Or you're asking for an exception and not the deferral agreement? You don't want to sign the deferral agreement, you're asking for an exception? Is that my understanding? Or are you asking for an exception through the deferral agreement?
I'm just kind of concerned that if I had this come through in a few years, that I owe the city somewhere about $100,000, and I currently have this lot that's worth about that. And from what I understand, if I were to not do anything, would the city take that cost if I were to leave the lots as they are? Or will there be a special assessment?
There could
arriving?
be a special assessment at some point in the future, but that's up to a future council or a current council to be able to decide that. So the reality of it is that, and legal counsel, correct me if I'm wrong, but the city council just in an open session like this doesn't have the ability to just waive an except or cause an exception. We don't,
Right.
that's not how the system works, and that's not something that they have purview to do. And so because of that, there's really, with you asking for an exception, there's nothing a council can do as an action item tonight to do something like that. What they have in front of them is the deferral agreement. We understand your concern, and quite frankly, that's why we put out there, here's the estimate, right? And because as Assistant City Manager Bond has helped people to understand many times over the years, there is a real cost to that. And if you want to develop, then that is your cost, whether it's now or whether it's 5 or 10 years from now, from when the city decides that those improvements need to go in. To add to that, the city may have no choice in that, because the EPA may actually come down and say, hey, now congratulations, you're now a part of our stormwater processes that we have to go through. And if that's the case, then the city would have to initiate something of that nature through a special assessment area or special service district or something like that. So that's really the two options that we have tonight. You can do nothing and ask the council to just pull the deferral agreement. You can ask them to approve it, but if you sign it, you are taking on that responsibility to be able to do that. That's essentially a development cost, right? The council, this council and previous councils, for as long as I've been involved with the city, for almost 16 years now, have said if development is going to occur, development needs to pay for development. And that's been their attitude and their approach to that. I don't know that that's changed. But again, if you're asking for an exception, that's not something they can act on in a meeting such as you're
Understood.
asking. So you really, what's on the table tonight is you can either ask them to table or do whatever with the deferral agreement or approve it. And then if you choose to sign it, you are on the hook for that.
Okay.
And that is the way that it works. That's really the only mechanism that we have to defer. That's why it's called the deferral agreement, those improvements being done right now as opposed to sometime in the future.
There's one other thing too, and in the past, a couple of councils back, they allowed for those things to happen. However, they also made the developer or owner that did the split put in a curb, gutter, sidewalk, and a drain across, and so you'll have a lot with a house on it, or a fourplex even in some cases, and a sidewalk that looks like it's 4 feet above where it ought to be, and a sign on the end of it that says end of sidewalk, and it's only 100 feet long. And so this deferral agreement is the opportunity for you to say, I can move that out and take care of it or hope for a better outcome. I don't think we'll ever see federal funding to come into this.
Yeah, and Norm did a great job explaining it. The only thing that I'd add to that is if a deferral agreement is not agreed upon by the applicant and the city, then really your requirement is to meet the subdivision improvement requirements, which means you'd have to put in all that infrastructure up front, which would cost today's dollars, close to that estimate. And that's the cost of development. The city would be in a position where, because we're requiring it, we'd have to find the best location for those improvements, and that has happened in the core area of town. Generally, with multifamily developments that have happened there, the city has not been interested in entering into a deferral agreement for that. So, like the Orchard Park development that's up by the cemetery has that infrastructure in, and the city had to do its best to guess where that infrastructure needed to be so that it would work within the entire system of that future stormwater improvements in the core area of town. So, really, those are the options that you have. Is there's this deferral agreement that can defer those improvements. In fact, these deferral agreements often have sunsets to where if the city's not able to figure that out within a given period of time, then the deferral agreement would go away, and the city would need to, go back to the drawing table and figure out how to make this stormwater infrastructure work in the core area of town. And like Norm said, this is something that Santaquin City's not necessarily required to do at this point, but we're expecting that very soon Santaquin City will be in a position where the state is requiring us to figure out our stormwater situation, and that we need to have that infrastructure to adequately take care of that. So your option is the deferral agreement, or the city just simply cannot approve your subdivision unless all the requirements have been met, and that includes these infrastructure improvements.
So if I were to not move forward with this subdivision, what's likely to happen to homeowners or to my lot at that time? Will there still be some kind of assessment? Do you anticipate?
It's
It's a
undetermined.
future policy decision.
Right. But it is a looming situation that the city's going to have to address at some point in possibly the very near future.
Okay.
So, and it's very costly to do infrastructure improvements, and it's particularly difficult to do infrastructure improvements after the development and the homes have been built, which, again, this is the oldest part of the historic core of Santaquin City. So that's going to be for the city council, either this council or a future council, to try and figure out how to make that work.
Okay.
I would say kudos to you for recognizing that this is a real cost that is going to come at some point in time. You know, there've been some that have just said, "Oh, I'll just push it off," and that's fine. But reality is that if you sign an agreement like this, then you are potentially on the hook for that at some point in the future as things move forward, or as the EPA comes in and says it's not just the state, it's the feds for the stormwater situation. So kudos to you for recognizing that and being understanding that may be something you may or may not want to do.
Yeah, well, and I anticipated that there would definitely be cost in development. I just think I was very well, and I want to clarify, this quote wasn't from the city. I asked several people at the city, and they weren't willing to give a quote on what this work would cost.
So here's
I took it to a general contractor.
We do what we call engineers' estimates. We don't bid on work because we're not in that business as a general contractor. We look at it and go, okay, what do we believe historically, or even just in the last little while, what has curb and gutter cost? It's $30 to $35 a linear foot. If you look at your sheet, it's probably about that much.
Yeah.
How much is sidewalk? Might be $8 to $10 a square foot, right? Asphalt is $3 or $4 a square foot. So all of those costs add up. We're not in the business of estimating that for someone in your situation. We can give you, here's the square footage that we think it would be. We can give you the linear footage and those types of things, but we just have the very best information that we have, and that's what we can provide. So if we're unable to provide that, then that's something that, again, we would ask you to rely on a contractor that actually does that work on a regular basis to give you those real costs. Because we could tell you, I mean, it'd be real easy. Okay, it's $60,000, and then you go get a bid for $96,000, and then you're like, "Hey, city, you told me it's only going to be $60,000." That's why we don't get in the middle of that, because we're not in the business of bidding those types of improvements.
And I agree. Kudos to you for doing your due diligence, because this is the cost of development. This is a reality that a lot of people may not understand. Is it costs a lot of money to make a lot buildable. The unfortunate nature of your property is the lot you'd create as a corner lot, which just increases the frontage that you would need to improve. So that's like I say, one of those unfortunate realities that sometimes these corner lots end up being pretty expensive lots because they have a lot of frontage to improve.
I'll probably move to table this, but I'm just hoping that we might have a conversation in the future, because I feel like my desires and the city's desires are on the same page, that we would like to see development, that we'd like to see the tax base increase and the property values increase. But at this point, it doesn't make financial sense for me to incur a cost that's more than the cost, the value of the land itself. So, what would be the process to continue this conversation another week?
So I think you've indicated that at this point you're not willing to sign a deferral agreement. I think that probably gives the city council the indication that this is probably something they should table. And then, like I say, we're happy to continue to explain this, or you have the ability to continue to do your due diligence to explore what those costs will be, and it's really up to you to weigh the what you want to do.
So, and I would say that we can have conversations all day long, but the reality of it is we have a code, and unless the council gives us a different code to work with, if you want to propose a code amendment that could change that requirement, then you're more than welcome to do that. There is a cost to put something in like that, and we'll be happy to put it through the process, but it's ultimately the council. They would need to decide whether they're willing to accept or change the code from what it is today. The conversations don't really go anywhere because they've already given us the playbook to work with. If they want to change the playbook, then we can have a different conversation. But the conversation is what it is today. It's either a deferral agreement, you do nothing, or there's potential for a code amendment. If that's a direction that you would like to go.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Then I guess we've heard where we want to go with this, so at this point, we'll just table it until we hear something else.
Well, I want to ask Brett, do we table it? I thought that was an expectation of further action. Do we table it or do we deny it?
You can just deny it too.
Either one you'd like. You can table it and it still is out there, or you can just deny it now. He's always free to apply again if he chooses.
I'd rather not leave it open, hanging.
That's your.
Well, if we do
certainly
table it,
that's
is
your
there a
discretion.
time limit that it has to come back
Could
at,
we
or-
table it until the next city council meeting while I do some more due diligence?
So you're going to reconsider possibly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that would give us cause to table rather than deny.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
So,
You like a
wanna make
motion?
motion to that effect?
Make a motion, we table this action.
I'll second it.
Second. Councilman Hathaway?
Aye.
Councilman Meekum?
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway?
Aye.
Councilman Adcock?
Aye.
Councilmember Montoya?
Aye.
Tabled. We'll
Thank you.
see you on the next agenda. Okay, Employee Policy and Procedures Handbook.
Can he make a comment?
allowed to have questions, or are we just here to listen? I don't know.
I don't know, do you like listening to me?
I just.
Come on up, Mark, I'd like to hear from you. I know you guys are looking at the same thing, and in
Yeah,
fact, when I
sort of
read
in
it
the
at
same
first,
boat, but not on a corner.
yeah,
But my question was, so, if we do incur this cost, is it something they say, oh, okay, it's due by the end of the year? Do we spread it out over 20 years? Do I have to get financing to do it? Or how does that bond or whatever it is work?
So, to be clear, Mark Bing, he has a lot that's in the same kind of neighborhood here, but your mechanism is a little bit different than what the mechanism is in the deferral agreement. I believe yours has a waiver of protest, which is a little bit different. It's not necessarily of a deferral agreement, but it kind of acts as a similar mechanism. So the reality of it is that it's not up to us how that's paid for. If it goes in on a loan where a home's built there and the home loan pays for that, then that could be something that you could put on your mortgage. You're not paying the city necessarily to do it, right? Unless there's a special assessment or a special service district put in place at some point in the future, then the city could be potentially involved. We just have the requirement that you either have a deferral agreement if the council would approve one. In your case, it's a waiver of protest, or you put the improvements in. We don't finance the improvements, I guess is the best way to put that.
I guess what I'm asking is, so my lot's 103 feet.
Uh-huh.
I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna buy 103 feet worth of sewer. You're doing the inner core of town all at the same time, sort of.
Well, again,
How is that?
that could be the case if that's the council's decision at some point in the future that that's what they do. But right now, that's not in place. It's just in place that if a development occurs, that it's either you put the improvements in at the time of development, at the time of recordation of a lot, or bond for it, and or get a deferral agreement. So there really isn't a way to really answer your question. Is it a 20 or 30 year bond? That's a totally separate conversation. If the council decides they're going to go for the $28 million to put in curb gutter, storm drain, sidewalk, et cetera, at some point in the future for the core area of town. That's parameters that we don't even know right now. So there's not really any way to answer that question.
Yeah, Manager Bigley alluded to earlier. This is something that stresses me out, and the reason why is because when people enter into deferral agreements, I hope they realize that they're entering into a binding agreement between two parties, and that at such time when the city is ready to move forward with the project, they're on the hook to pay that money for that infrastructure. Now, in some cases, that infrastructure costs a lot of money, and my hope is that these residents who are doing that are putting the money aside to be able to pay that at some point in the future. Now, I would anticipate, and I'm not going to speak for this council or future council, but I would anticipate that the city is going to do what they can to give as much for notice so that you can prepare for that. Because, you know, I expect that there may be some property owners that are like, oh, I forgot about that agreement that I agreed to, and I'm on the hook for, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to pay for these infrastructure improvements that created value for property to be developed to either sell as real property or, you know, whatever value the applicant was able to gain in that. So I guess the answer to your question is we're going to do our best to be, you know, the best that we can to be prudent and communicating with these people that we have agreements with, so that they can live up to the end of their bargain.
Okay. I guess I have two other homes, and obviously I've built them before this was any kind of an agreement. Are people that have already here, are they affected by that, or?
People already here already affected by what?
I have my other two, let's say I decide, okay, I'm not gonna build or whatever, but, and you decide to put in the sewer and curb and gutter and all that, I'm trying to figure out, is this bill divided amongst all of the inner part of town, or
And that's
just
what
the new
Norm's
people building?
alluding
or-
to, is that hasn't been decided yet, and
Okay.
that could be in a couple different,
I mean, if it is, the cost per person or whatever would be
Right.
less.
There's a couple different tools, like a special improvement district or a special assessment area, because that's what the norm, that's what the mayor was alluding to earlier, in that
norm.
that all of the residents of the city may not necessarily, this may not be an impact to them, because they already live in developments that have
Right.
incurred those development costs to put in the stormwater improvements that are needed. So that's why a special assessment area is almost kind of like a isolated, special assessment or some sort of mechanism to create the funding needed for that project.
So Mark, to answer your question, historically, not in Santaquin, but in other municipalities that have dealt with this, historically, it's divided up according to frontage footage. So if you have 110 feet, you're responsible for 110 feet of that. That's why in this case, it's so much more expensive, because it's two frontages on really one lot, because it wraps around the corner. So
Right.
that's historically how it has been
Yeah, but I'm
done.
saying I have 110 feet on the lot that I'm building on.
Right, and then you have
And I
another
have two
110
other
feet
homes,
somewhere
but
else.
it'll
Yeah,
be
yeah.
all of it, okay.
So you're exactly right, and that is again, it's a council decision at some point in the future if that were to be implemented. But typically, historically, in other municipalities, that's how they've done it, is on a frontage, a foot frontage or a frontage length of footage.
Okay.
So that's again, when you talk about something that is proportional, that's proportional to the property that you own. That's the way that has traditionally been done. But again, that's not set up. That's not happening right now. It's not anything that the council has voted on. It's not coming tomorrow or the next day.
Right.
There's going to have to be some type of a mechanism to be able to do that.
There is in this case responsibility that'll be levied on the city at some time because of the stormwater.
Right.
Controlling it, making sure we're taking care of it, and even to the point, is it going back down into the aquifer, or what are you doing with it? And that is a whole master plan of stormwater treatment and how you handle it. That's part of that whole cost. And, we've lived with it and we've gotten by because we have these wide roads that are down through the core part of town, and the water disperses out for 3 or 4 rods in some instances, which is before the homes even exist, or there's a ditch there that catches it, and we've just gotten by. It's still the pioneer mode for a lot of it. And really what we're talking about here is if this room was filled with half the people from Summit Ridge and half of the people from the core area of town, well, the core area of town people would really like everybody to pitch in.
Right.
But I think that other half wouldn't be that anxious to do so. And that's where the equality in all of this comes. They've paid for it because the developer may have paid for it up front, but every dollar of that got passed down to them as they bought their homes. So Payson has done this most recently. You can drive into areas of town in Payson where they have new curb gutter, sidewalk, and they're maintaining the way that their storm drains work. But it's an engineering, it's a whole master plan, and then that cost trickles down from there. And it's no different than if you had to replace the road in some cases in front of your house. Sometimes there's a special district that takes care of it, but the city has to bond, or the city has to come up with funds to do that. And we're still looking for a sugar daddy. When we find that guy, we're going to bleed him dry, I'm afraid. So does
Thank
that
you.
explain it, Mark?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
So, okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
I have one more quick question.
Sure.
So this deferral agreement, would that follow whoever the current owner of the
Runs with the
respective
property.
lots are?
It runs with the property, so
Yeah.
it would be recorded against the property. For instance, in your case, a part of it would be recorded as part of the corner lot, and one of it would be, the rest of it would
Of
be
my house,
on,
yeah.
on your house. That is correct. And again, it would be proportional. It is, I believe that that's the way that it's written. It would be proportional, and but again, that's all to be determined at some point in the future. That's undecided at this point.
And that's part of why I made the comment that this stresses me out, because there's been some who've entered into a deferral agreement that feel like, oh, this isn't happening in my lifetime. I'll be 6 feet under by the time this happens. But their posterity is going to inherit this development agreement, and therefore they're going to say, well, I never entered into this agreement, but it's something they inherited as part of that property and the responsibility that's there. So Norm's exactly right. This all runs with the land.
We're not pointing out any current council members in this particular instance.
Well, and it kind of sounds like pending a city council's decision, though, that it doesn't matter if you've done the deferral agreement or not. A special assessment is going to come if you're a property
Well,
owner in
again,
the area.
that's the assumed mechanism, but nothing's decided at this point in
The
time.
city council could decide it's being paid for some way else.
Sure. If we get a sugar daddy, we can certainly do that.
It's, this thing is not gonna happen overnight.
Right.
This
It's
is
gonna-
something
it's
that
gonna
is
take some
going to
time.
take years to put together.
Yeah.
Because you have to go through a complete study of the drainage of all of town and what we do with it.
Our first stormwater master plan, that was the very first one that the city had in 2017, started to address this as an issue. And here we are 8 years later, and we're still 7 years later, sorry, we're still not any farther along necessarily on having a mechanism or a plan, or it just says, here's something that's coming, you need to be able to prepare to deal with it.
And so you guys are saying that this sunset clause might
We're
take
not
effect,
done.
and then you'll get a special assessment anyways.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be.
Okay.
One thing that to keep in mind also is that the saying is that it's never gonna be cheaper than it is today. So 10 years from now, it may be $150,000 instead of the 95,000 that you're looking at now. So the reality of it is that it's never going to be cheaper than it is today. So that's why kicking the can down the road is maybe not the best mechanism, because again, future owners, future posterity, whatever, can have that burden that's going potentially to come on them.
And that's exactly why we're careful with engineers' estimates about what it's going to cost,
Right.
because that is today's dollars. If it doesn't happen for 10 years, it's going to be a completely different market in 10 years in the future, and it could cost a lot more.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your understanding and your patience.
Thank you. Employee policies and procedure handbook updates. This has to do mostly with our employee handbook, but it has to do with the drug policy, with medical marijuana, and everything that's adopted through the state. So let's go through it, Jason, rather quick and see where we can go.
So, Mayor and Council, we talked about this in the work session. Again, if you want me to talk about it for the public's sake, I'm happy to do that, or if you have any questions, or if you want me to go through the language, I'm happy to do that.
Unless you'd like to make a comment, and really, most of the comments that we've heard up to this point is to protect us in a situation where an employee would be driving a vehicle, even though medical marijuana is prescribed, you are still responsible to make sure that you're driving not under those things.
Yep. To be clear, anybody who's in a safety-sensitive position, which includes driving city vehicles, would not be allowed per our policy to have to be using medical marijuana.
There's two other items in there as well, right?
Yeah, and just there's some overall updates. The drug policy hasn't been updated for a good 10 years or so. So legal counsel has taken an opportunity to do a comprehensive review and update anything accordingly with legislation or whatever that's happened in the last 10 years. The other item is related to bereavement. State legislation is actually last general session passed a bill that requires that cities provide bereavement to employees that are involved in a stillborn or a miscarriage, employees or the father of the child lost. So that language is added almost word for word from that state legislation, and so those are the two topics that are addressed in this policy. And like I said, we can go through the language if you'd like, or it's staff's recommendation and with legal counsel's review to approve these amendments to the employee policy.
So the first one is the changes on the employee policies. The second one is the repeal of the drug policy in the Santaquin City Code.
Correct. We would like to have the drug policy just in the employee handbook, not in city code.
So these would be separate motions.
Correct.
Right.
One's a resolution, one's an ordinance.
So we can start with the first one, 05, and then move to 0502. I did think that number is wrong. Oh,
So
no, it's
resolution.
resolution and
Resolution
ordinance.
and an
Yeah.
ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 05-05-2023.
Okay, motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Councilman Hathaway.
Aye.
Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway.
Aye.
Councilman Adcock.
Aye.
Councilmember Montoya.
Aye.
Okay, and now the ordinance to repeal the drug policy per the code.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance 0502, 2023, a repeal of the drug policy in Santaquin City Code.
I had a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Councilmember Montoya.
Aye.
Councilman Adcock.
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway.
Aye.
Councilman Meekum.
Aye.
Councilman Hathaway.
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to the motor vehicle access with code amendment. And this is something that's gone through DRC and planning and zoning, and they've made recommendations. We looked at it previous. This also has an extra width, which would give them up to 40 feet. Or 50 feet, 50 feet.
Right now.
Right.
And I chuckle at what they say. It's probably not so much to get the diesel or the fuel truck in there as much as it is to try to get the weekend warriors that are driving their pickups with a trailer behind. And you know, I'm one of those, but I just backed mine through a 10-foot gate and amazed my wife. I backed up through it. So I don't believe that thing, but I do see where, you know what, a little better access gives us a little more open. It's pretty good. Is there any comments or anything that you want to state on this?
Just the same one I raised during the work session. I hope the applicant understands that there's a 30-foot barrier between driveways.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I think so.
I'll just make a comment, being as I get to watch a lot of that. These working warriors trying to pull in there.
That's cheap entertainment, and you
Yes,
should
it
be
is.
paying for that.
It is. It is. It's amazing how some people do what they do, but I think the 50 feet would be great because I'm one that pulls triple. So there's, it's hard to back up with a trailer and you got another trailer. So yeah, it's good to be able to just pull straight through.
Okay, well, all that, do we have a motion for ordinance 0503?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Councilman Hathaway?
Aye.
Councilman Meekum?
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway?
Aye.
Councilman Adcock?
Aye.
Councilmember Montoya?
Aye.
Okay. And the adoption of the Santaquin City fiscal year 23-24 tentative budget. Now this, we started on looking at all of the needs that we had and what wants that we think we could pare down to. And there were meetings in February, and that's not where our staff started. Our staff started in December and going through things, and I don't think they were surprised too much by some of the way things were elevated on the list of importance. And even though they're a need, they're still listed as what is more important than the next. I just want to say, as we have gone through this tentative budget, I'm amazed at the work that this staff has put in, especially Norman and Shannon. She dreams about this every night. This
I think it's more like nightmares, but
yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. But it's been interesting, and I'll leave away the word fun because it's not really fun, but it's interesting to sit in a meeting with the two of them, and they're talking numbers and throwing them around, and I have to try to catch up as this thing is going past. They know every one of these numbers, and if it's a suggestion, hey, let's cut here or do this there, they're on top of not only where those revenues are coming from, but where we have looked at it. And I'm impressed mainly by saying this. A year and 4 months ago, we came into this council, and within 4 months, we pretty much changed much of the staff, administration, the city administrator, the finance director, our finance, and that put a lot of pressure onto some new people. I refer back to November when Shannon was awarded one heck of an award for all of the work that she had put in, but also the verification of doing the duty correctly. And I think it was good on our part. We lost some people that were very good, and that's life. We made changes, and in some cases, we didn't replace those people. We've moved a lot of responsibility around, and a lot of those, all of those, have made a difference with this city. Have taken burdens off in some places and helped in others. But when it all came down to it, as we've gone through this budget, I liked what we've seen. We've cut it down because of the impending tax issue that we've got to address as we move forward. And we've set the stage. This is where we need to be, but it's not over exorbitant in any way. We've looked at it with realistic glasses on, and I feel like, we've still got a ways to go. There may be a few places where we could trim a few things. I've questioned that for some time, but I feel pretty good where we're at. But I want to open it up to you guys. What are your feelings? You've had a chance to look at this. You've discussed it with us. Any comments that you want to make? Is there any questions that you have?
So Mayor, I have a presentation if you'd like me to go through that, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have with the council first.
Well, I'm good with the presentation. It'll make it go faster if we can get the questions answered.
You've heard me talk, right?
Do you want to go that way? And then we'll ask any questions? Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I request a 5-minute recess before we begin that.
Granted. There's not even a vote on that. 5 minutes. Those of you in Zoom world, we've got 5 minutes. We'll be checking the waste treatment facility for water surges. That way we'll know how many people out in the city are watching this. That's what they do at the Super Bowl. And we're doing it for the Super Bowl of Santaquin. Good end of the tentative budget.
Do that? I'm thinking, no.
We didn't bring that version.
Mayor? That's what I was afraid of.
They're gonna be.
Okay.
Oh, I left my pillow in the car.
You know what?
Just kidding.
This is really good. It's got a lot of good information on it, so.
It is good. It's one of my favorite parts.
Mayor and council, this is, first of all, I would like to echo what the mayor has said about Shannon and her efforts. She has been working diligently with myself, with our directors and our staff and the mayor and others. Everything from our insurance company for health insurance to our bonding and all of the other folks that are involved in budget. And she has been doing a fantastic job. She did receive the certified public administrator back in November and did that all on her own. That was actually something that our previous finance director and recorder had indicated he was going to do for a couple of years and didn't ever get there. And so kudos to Shannon. She has really been working diligently on this, and it is a gargantuan effort. It really is something that is just again hours and hours and hours, and we adjust this thing over here and it affects 14 more things over here. So it's just one of those things that she has done a great job with getting her mind wrapped around and being able to understand it and really owning the budget. And that's something that has been really, really good for me to have that ability without me having to do it. And that's something that has just been really good. So thank you, Shannon, for all that you've done on that. She really, yeah. She doesn't want that, and I'm probably embarrassing her, but that's okay. It's my job.
But you're doing it well.
Well,
and it's important
yes,
for
absolutely.
that to be recognized, for you to be recognized for
Absolutely.
that. Because without you putting in your heart and soul and time to doing it well and really committing yourself to that, the city wouldn't run. Even with us up here, it still wouldn't run. We can't run it without money. And if that money is not well organized and kept track of, we're in big trouble. Big, big trouble. So thank you.
What's that?
Are you an accountant or a CPA or just
No.
good with numbers? My wife.
She's a magician.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me step back and just indicate for the council and the mayor and the public, the state of Utah requires us to have a balanced budget. Even though the federal government doesn't necessarily need to feel like they have a balanced budget, the state constitution and the state code requires cities and municipalities, counties, districts, etc., to have a balanced budget. And to be able to do that, there's two aspects to a budget. What are those two aspects? There's revenue and expenditures, right? And so as a city, we have significant expenditures. We have lots of staff time. We have lots of salaries that we pay. And again, we've gone through everything from fire department to police to look at wages and make sure that we can have qualified workforce and keep good people, right? We've lost people over the years, and that has been due to potentially not having the right strategy or the right ability to be able to keep good staff. So with that, I'll go into this and we'll talk about many different things. You may have some questions. If you'd write them down or put them in your phone or whatever, I think we'll get through most of them by the time we get to the end. But if you feel like you need to interrupt, then interrupt. It's totally fine. So with the city's budget, we have different areas of the budget. We have different revenue sources. Okay, we have utilities that we charge for utility services, water, sewer, PI, garbage, storm drain, etc. Okay, we also have impact fees. Now, impact fees are something that we talked about earlier. Impact fees are what's called restricted funds. There's some other restricted funds, and we'll talk about those. But impact fees specifically can only be used for increasing capacity in whatever system we're charging for it. Tonight we talked about the sewer master plan. That impact fee in 90 days can have the potential to go up from $4,416 per home to about $5,090 per home. So again, about 14% increase. Those funds cannot be used for roads. They cannot be used for staff time. They cannot be used for police vehicles or snow plows or any other thing of that nature that is more of an operational nature, okay? They have to be used for increasing capacity in our systems. That is state code. That's state law. There's nothing we can do to get around that. Other revenue sources that we have are property taxes, sales taxes, energy and use taxes. So there's Rocky Mountain Power and others that have telecommunications, and the gas company, they have small taxation on them that we get a portion of that to help us run our budget. Gas taxes, transit taxes, licensing and permits, intergovernmental funds, and charges for services. So there's all kinds of different places that we have the ability to bring in revenue from the city. Okay, some of those are a little less restrictive, some of them are a little harder, right? If you look at the donations, there's not a lot of donations. We don't have a sugar daddy, as it were, that has helped us to be able to have a whole bunch of money coming into the city. Other cities have had that, right, with parks and rodeo arenas and other things. We don't necessarily have that. So there's really just a couple of areas that really make up the majority of our budget: sales taxes, property taxes, and utility charges and charges for services. Okay. Anticipated sales taxes. If you look at the curve here, this is something that is very interesting. For many years, we were fairly flat on sales taxes. But if you look at the 2020 time range, when we incentivize a grocery store to come to town, those sales taxes have really increased over that amount of time. So that's really good for us. They've kind of flattened out a little bit. I think the economy and the whole COVID thing and everything else have kind of helped things to kind of flatten out a little bit. That's just a theory that I have. It's not necessarily scientific, but you can kind of see that we've leveled off a little bit on sales taxes. Now that likely is going to change, right? Because we have other businesses that we've incentivized to come to town. We have Murdoch Ford that's already broken ground now. It's been a little bit, but they've started their soil prep down there to build their large dealership, and that potentially will help us to bring in significant sales taxes. Now that will be sometime in the future. That's what we call IFCOM, not income, right? That's potential sales tax revenue that can come to us in the future, but isn't realized right here today. It might be a year before we start seeing any of that. The other one that off the top of my head is McDonald's, right? McDonald's has now pulled their building permit. You've seen during the winter time that they've been working in that mud hole over there to try and get the utilities in, and they've now pulled their building permit. So I would imagine in the next couple of weeks, months, whatever it might be for them on their schedule, that they'll start going vertical on that McDonald's store. They still have some site improvements to do. So those are two areas where sales taxes can increase for the city. All of those were areas where the city incentivized, right? We incentivized the Macy's, the grocery store, to come here with roads and help with their roads to be able to open up that barrier. The same thing with Murdoch. We have an agreement with Murdoch to help pay some increased tax revenue to them to be able to help build the roads and the other city infrastructure. We've not incentivized any cash to them as far as helping them in their business or anything like that, just removing barriers. And so business friendly that we have been over the last several years, it's been a really good thing, and that the property tax or the sales taxes are showing that. As far as property taxes are concerned, this is a graphic that shows up every year in this form or another in our budget, okay? The biggest portion of property taxes are the school district, to the tune of 78% of the property taxes that we pay go towards the school district. Okay, there's a reason for that. That's an educated populace is a good thing, right? We have an administrator here in the room with us that would help you to understand that it's a lot easier to educate than it is to incarcerate. Right, that's one of the things, and so whether you like property taxes or not with the school district, that is one of the things that's talked about with the school district, is that an education for the populace is a good thing. The city portion of the property tax is fairly minor. It's right now it's only 9.63% of the total bill that you pay to the county in property taxes actually makes it to the city. Okay, the rest is to the county and other special service districts and other smaller tax portions of the bill. Okay. Property tax rates. So to be clear, the property tax rate is set by the county and the state. We do not set these rates, and none of the other cities set the rate. The rate is set by valuation of property and the keeping of, without a tax increase, the keeping of revenue, what they call revenue neutral. right? If somebody were in the city in 2013, they paid the same bill from 2014 to now to the city. Now, their property taxes have gone up, but that's not been the city portion. That's been other portions of the property tax that has gone up. You can see that we're a little bit below the middle of the road or the average in the county for property taxes right now. Okay, as far as the mill levy rate. The mill levy rate, again, is set by the county and the state. It's not set by us. You can see where we compare. Again, this is just a graphical representation of where we've been at. A couple of other things to note is that the property tax mill levy rate over the last 10 years has gone down significantly. Again, that is the revenue neutral code, state code that we have to live by. Without a property tax increase, that's where we get every year, is that, yeah, we may get a few more homes in there in the city, but the property tax on the existing homes that were there before that year stay neutral over those years unless there's a property tax increase. The last property tax increase that we did was in 2013, and since that time, we've treated 71% of our roads with some type of treatment, whether it's a slurry or an overlay or a complete reconstruct. We have really done a good job with those funds, along with our what's called state B and C road funds, to be able to help take care of our roads. I would dare say that our 71% of our roads is probably on the higher end of most municipalities in the state of having been able to treat that much of their roads. Now, do we still have road problems? Sure, because there's not an endless supply of budget money to be able to take care of that. We still have every year, every winter, we see, okay, well, that road's now having a problem that didn't have a problem last year, right? So we see that, and we continue to address those as we come along. Sorry, Mayor.
I was just going to say, this is such an important graph, especially in understanding what's happening with our taxes. A lot of people say, oh, you've had this tax that was set in 2014, you know, that should be good. When in fact, it's devalued itself at the cost of 57%. We're actually nowhere near where we were 11 years ago. And 9 years ago, whatever it was, 9 years ago, and so this, where you could say we brought, or we have built this town up with new homes that have come in. Why is it not sustaining? Why do you have to add to it? This is a real good reason and a real clear picture as to that diminishing value through that tax rate that's caused it to drop.
Right. The question has been asked, well, you've increased homes by 107%. The property tax income, the actual revenue that's come into the city, has only increased 66% since in that same amount of time. So we've more than doubled the number of homes and infrastructure for those homes that we have to take care of, but we've only brought in 66% as much sales or property tax as was compared to the number of homes. So we can get into that, and that's another discussion for another day.
But a good point, because the graph was staring me in the face.
You got it. And on the flip side of that, we're seeing that the anticipated property tax, this is the trend should a property tax increase be implemented this year. And I'll get to another graph and talk about this here in just a second. But that shows the trend, or the potential trend for this year, of where property taxes could go. Operational budgets. We basically have 5 what we call functional areas. Okay, we have public works, we have public safety, we have administrative services, community services, and community development. We have 5 functional areas in the city. Okay, public works is everything from sewer to roads to streets to water to PI to whatever else that you drive on, or you flush the toilet, or it needs water to flush the toilet. So public safety obviously is police department, fire, EMS. Administrative services is everything from utility billing to court services to finance to et cetera. And community services is the kind of the leisure services of town. It is the fun stuff, the pickleball, the basketball courts, the soccer tournaments, the other stuff that we have in there. And then community development takes care of the needs that we have for everything from zoning to growth to building permits to building inspections, et cetera. Growth by functional area. This is something that's important to note, that over the years that I've been with the city, I've been on and off with the city since before this, but public works and public safety have always been the focal points of the city. right? You need the toilets to flush. You need the water to flush the toilets. You need the streets to drive on. You need the safety. We're one of the more safe communities in the state of Utah. We have a pretty good focus on our public safety and our public works, and this graph shows that. So let's talk about changes that are potentially coming for the 23-24 fiscal year. As I showed this graph earlier, this does anticipate an increase in revenue from property taxes of $595,000. As you know, we've put this out there, we've notified the public. There's been many questions, and we will get to answering those questions as we have the information and can gather the information that may not be readily at hand. We'll put that out there on the frequently asked questions page. There is a page of the city website that is devoted to the potential property tax increase, but this is anticipated in the budget, and I'll go through why that is at this point in time. We're not trying to lock anybody into anything. We're not trying to commit you have to do a property tax increase. That decision will come on August 1st when we have that meeting. So we're 3 months ahead. We're trying to do the informational campaign that the council has authorized and we've talked about and tried to implement that. That started yesterday. Included in the budget are the things in green. So the council and mayor and staff may recognize this. This is the scoring mechanism that we had from the city budget planning session that we had in February. This is the personnel side of things. Okay, so we've already included the 2 increases to the public safety wages that we've already done, again, to try and keep good staff and qualified staff to be able to help in the public safety sector. The other things in there's some things that just aren't included just because there's not enough revenue to do that. Okay, I'm happy to answer any questions, although I am going to burn through this a little bit quickly to get us to where we can have some more discussion about the budget. Vehicles right now, we've only got 2 vehicles included in there for the police department. Right now, the only thing that the budget could afford with the property tax and with a small draw from reserve funds is 2 vehicles. The snowplow is in there as well with the transfer from the general fund to the capital vehicles. And one other thing is in there, and that is just the trade for the 2 public works vehicles. We have 2 public works vehicles that will both sell and purchase new ones, and it's a fairly minimal cost. It's about $14,000 difference, but it keeps that fleet up and newer so that we don't have the continued, as you've seen in surplus items over the last several years, we've had trucks that we've sold that have been 20 plus years old that cost us more in maintenance than it does to just surplus them and sell them off. Some equipment is included in there, and I apologize if this is hard to see, but the green items, and this will be a presentation that will be in the packet. You can go back and review if you have questions, or I'm happy to try and focus in on them if you have any questions on that. The equipment is anything from everything from nightsticks for the police department to the door security that we need for one of our buildings to bulletproof vests that are needed for the police department, PPE for the fire department, on those types of items, just so that the public is aware. We have a rotation of those where we buy a few of those every year so we don't have a huge hit on firearms or bulletproof vests or PPE, which is the turnout gear and stuff for the fire department, right? SCBAs, the breather devices that they use to go into a burning building. So all of those things, not all of them, but a lot of those things are on a rotational basis. So we've included those just like we have in past years. Okay. Capital projects, everything from the industrial park, which again is being self-funded, right, by the sale of the property out there. We're still in great shape on that and moving that down the road. We have a Main Street widening project that will be at least from 3rd East to 1st West this year, which would include a light at Center Street. Woohoo! That's only been in the works since about 2008 when I started working for the city. So that is something that is very, very close, and we will put out to bid probably in the next couple of weeks. The only thing that could potentially be an issue with that is whether if we, for some reason, contractors are tied up or there's exorbitant costs or something like that, we will bring that back to you and report on you as we get that out and bid out and bring those results back to you. But that is a minimum of what we're trying to do with the Main Street project. Now, I know the mayor has had some discussion with MAG, the Mountain Association of Governments, to try and move up so that we could do the whole project, phase 4 and 5 together, but that's not looking as likely at this point in time. Other items on there: blower replacement for the WRF, membrane replacement for the WRF, the water reclamation facility, demo of the old junior high school and the senior center, that's on there. You'll remember that we got a $375,000 grant from MAG to be able to tear those buildings down and demolish them and haul them off. The city's portion of that work is about $75,000 minus some in-kind, about $15,000 of in-kind for us to use our landfill for the disposal of the materials there. There's some other ideas that the mayor has had that we're gonna try and implement that we might be able to bring a little bit of revenue in to be able to help that as well, but we can talk about that at another time. Capital projects, impact fee eligible. The biggest thing on impact fees right now is gonna be the sewer treatment plant. We've talked about that we have about $10.5 million of projects that are within the next 5 years at the plant. We have about $6.8 million sitting in the bank earmarked for these improvements. So again, we're going to bring those design contracts to you in the next couple of weeks or month or so to try and get that going and get those designed so that we can start spending some of that money to increase the capacity of the WRF. All of our collection system, for the most part, will be able to handle us far past 5 years at this point in time. We talked about that a little bit in the work meeting. Ball field lights, Centennial Park improvements potentially. All of these, again, if you remember, impact fee funded that are impact fee eligible. Those are restricted funds. When we take in park impact fees from a new home that moves in, those have to be spent on new increased capacity at our parks. That's how we built the Harvest View Park. We've got about $5.5–6 million in the ground down there now with pickleball courts and 405 parking stalls. I remember that number because I said we can never have enough parking. Bathrooms, the soccer fields, all the utilities and the access, etc. Beautiful concession building down there and those pickleball courts. I was there the other night at 9 o'clock on Saturday night, and there were 6 of the 8 courts being used with the lights. It was fantastic. Coming up next, I did want to give you just a short report on employee wages. You'll recall in July of 2022, we increased wages for our police department because we were woefully behind on those and making sure that we could, again, attract and keep qualified police officers. The budget impact, the annual budget impact on that is $285,000. In December of 2022, we increased and updated the staffing and wages for the fire department. That was so that we can have better coverage and more coverage and being able to make sure that we have overnight and weekend coverage for those needs that we have in the city. Just a short report on that. During the time that we have 60 hours a week, 10 hours a day for 6 days a week where we respond. And our average time on those calls is 90 seconds from the time the call comes in to the time that we're out the door and moving to fight a fire or whatever. Remember that fighting a fire doubles in size every minute. So every second counts when it comes to public safety and being able to respond to accidents and fires and other emergencies. At the council and mayor's direction, we have reviewed all of the other wages, which included fit for the city that are not sworn officers or fire and EMS, which included 56 positions. We did not find a systemic or department-wide issue like what we did in the police and the fire department. Of the 56 positions, there are 23 of those positions that appeared that we can move a grade range, which is just the range that we have to work in from a minimum to a maximum to be competitive with other wages. Everything from secretarial to parks to public works to engineering to administration. We have done that, and again, all while she's been working on the budget. Shannon has put that all together. So just a fantastic job with everything that she's done there. We will move those wage ranges. There are only 3 positions in the city that have any kind of need for movement on actual pay, and that has less than a $10,000 budget impact and is included in the current budget. So at the council's direction, and I've been asked a number of times on this, and we apologize it's taken us this long, but starting July 1, we will be able to make those adjustments and make those movements that we need to, again, to have qualified workforce and being able to be competitive with other cities out there. Every one of our positions in the city are now either at or right above or below average as far as the 20 or so municipalities that we've compared to where we could get the information. So I'm happy to report that we've done that, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about that. As of the current status of the fiscal year 22-23 budget, we're holding steady. We don't anticipate any major overages on revenue or overages on expenditures from the budget amendment that was passed in March of this year. So you'll remember at that point in time, we anticipated drawing out about $664,000 out of our rainy day fund to be able to help us get through the year. That was after we wrote down or removed $1.6 million worth of anticipated revenue from building permits that just haven't been realized this year because of the slowdown in the housing market. So big changes that have taken place there, and that's for our first budget year, that's a pretty big challenge to figure out how we're going to take out $1.6 million out of a $10.7 million budget. Again, as the mayor has indicated, we've tightened our belt. We've not purchased equipment. We've put off repairs. We've done all that. We've not hired some staff to be able to replace some that have left. So we've just allowed attrition to kind of happen there in some of those positions. And Shannon has, in the administrative side of things, has shuffled her staff around and reallocated hours and done things to be able to help with everything from utility billing to the treasurer, to our office supervisor, to payroll, to everything else. So it's been a gargantuan task, but again, we've tightened our belt and done all that we can do to not affect the levels of service that we have with the city. And
I think the one big kudo on that is maybe go back to last summer, hottest part of the year, we had one well down and another one burned. We had no way of being able to replace that. We have all this city that's relying on that water coming in. We lost one day of pressurized irrigation that dwindled down to within hours of when we got everything back up. But the city crew, the people that we had involved finding motors and finding them at a substantially less cost than expected, we ended up fixing everything and having spares on all of that for nearly a third of what we anticipated just replacing the one motor was.
Yeah.
So it's talent, it's people that's looking to the future, and it's spending wisely.
And it's kudos to previous councils that have set aside our repair and replacement revenue that we have sitting there for these exact purposes. By the way, we've got another well that's just been redone during the winter time. The one well that we went down and had to have a new motor on, we put the new motor on and found that there was a problem with the bearings in the well, so we've had to redo that. So there'll be another $45,000 or $50,000 that'll be coming on that to be able to replace that, and it's nearly done. And we'll see that in a budget amendment at the end of the year. But again, at least we've got good planning and we've got the revenue and the funds there to be able to take care of that. One thing that I would say is that we have, as far as the current budget, we have had a few revenues that have come in that are a little bit higher, but you may recall we also have had now some costs that have to do with potential flooding. We've rented some equipment, we bought a lot of sandbags, we bought pallets, we bought K-rail to be able to try and help us plan the very best that we can. Those costs right now are about $30,000, but should be able to be covered in the current budget amendment that we did in March with the increased revenue that's there. However, the one thing that is not included in that is any overtime. We've had crews down at the park on Saturday morning helping fill sandbags and moving pallets and doing other things. And we had one crew member this morning at 4:20 a.m. getting debris out of a trash rack so that we didn't flood streets and homes and that kind of thing. So just recognize that is going to be a budget impact this year, but we believe again at this point in time that we're able to handle that under the current budget. We also, our emergency manager has also put in a request to the county. The county actually asked us to send in our costs. So it appears that the state may be considering some type of a reimbursement or something for those costs. That's no guarantee, and there's no, but they've asked for that information. And so the fact that the state's declared a state of emergency statewide, that may be something that we might be able to recoup some of those costs that we've already put out there for. And Chris is our emergency manager has put that out there with the county, and the county was appreciative of the information that we provided. So we'll see where that goes. Lastly, I'm happy to answer any questions, and we can go into the budget. That's all I have.
There's a lot of comments I'd like to make on every slide, but I think I'll limit myself. And
Thank you.
however, you've heard me go on too. Dang it. So, are there any questions or where we want to go with this? We've all gone through these numbers, and we're all trying our best to make the most of what we could. We've tried to not be lavish in anything because we've tightened our belts so much through the year.
And your directors, kudos to your directors. We've had directors come back and visit with Shannon saying, hey, this may not be an absolute need this year. We might be able to put it off until next year. So many of your directors, kudos to them, have recognized the tight year that we find ourselves in and have come back and just, again, bare bones. I would indicate again that the budget that you're seeing in the packet does have a contemplation of a $595,000 tax increase, property tax increase overall throughout the city, which on an average home is about $10 a month increase from where they're at right now. I would also indicate that there's about $200,000 still of a draw out of the rainy day fund, just because we're still trying to figure out how to balance that budget. So that still is a draw off of there potentially. I would again recognize that this is just a tentative budget. It doesn't tie us into anything. If the council looks at me and Shannon and says, you guys are nuts, go take that $595,000 out of there, we'll do it. But you need to recognize the ramifications of that. We're not going to get police vehicles. We may not get a snowplow. We may not get other needed equipment for the Public Works Department. And it could even start dipping into potential changes of services, levels of service with the number of employees that we have and the ability that we have to service the residents that we have. So that's kind of where we're at. Don't shoot the messenger, but it is where we're at. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on it.
You good? Then I would entertain a motion to accept this resolution of tentative budget.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt Resolution 0506, 2023, adoption of the tentative fiscal year 2023-2024 budget for Santaquin City.
Have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilman Hathaway?
Aye.
Councilman Meekum?
Aye.
Councilman Sitaway?
Aye.
Councilman Adcock?
Aye.
Councilmember Montoya?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I just go over a couple of things as far as timing goes? Because we're looking at a truth in taxation this year, we will not have a finalized budget at the end of June like we typically do, a final budget for next year, but we will still need to finalize the current fiscal year budget, and we're looking at doing that on the 28th of June, which is a Wednesday. So I would ask you to put that on your calendars for now. That's usually a 10 or 15 minute meeting at the most. And we could do it at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whatever we need to do that way. That's typically done one of the last days of the fiscal year, which the fiscal year ends at 11:59 and 59 seconds of June 30th. So because June 30th is later in the week and there's some other things planned, we would tentatively look at that for June 28th, if you'd put that on your calendars, and I will send an invite out for that so that we can have that finished up.
What time?
Again, we can set the time. Well, in the past, we've usually done that kind of at 5 o'clock or 5:30 at the end of the day, where staff is still here and we can get it done, and we don't necessarily have to come back for a later evening meeting. So we're happy, Mayor, to look at you and say, is it 5 o'clock, is it 5:30, whatever works for the council.
I don't even have golf tournaments set for June 28th. So, boy, let's study
That's
this
good.
real close.
I could do 5:30.
We could do 5:30. Does that work for everybody on the 28th? Okay, I will send out an invite on that tomorrow so that we can finish that out. The truth in taxation process that we're going through right now, again, the informational campaign started yesterday. There's emails that went out, there are text messages that went out, there are utility billings in the mayor's newsletter in several formats that went out, social media posts. We would encourage anybody that has questions on that to please go to the website and fill out the question and form that's on there. The reason for that is because what we're seeing is that we're seeing multiple people have similar or the same questions. We will answer those questions as we have time, resources, and the answers to answer them on the frequently asked questions page. So as soon as we do that, you can kind of keep track of that on the frequently asked questions page. I would indicate that, again, kudos to the mayor and council. We've started this effort 3 months in advance. The vote on a potential property tax that the council will consider will be August 1st, which is 3 months from yesterday. So there will also be and that same night will be a public hearing, and then you can consider the budget. In that same vein, on July 27th, we have a public open house that will be here in this same room again for anybody to bring in their tax bill, and we can go through it and walk through the property tax calculator, answer questions, etc. There will be no action on that night. That will just be an open house for people to come and have a discussion and talk about whatever they want to talk about with the mayor. That would be directed. It will be similar to a council meeting, but again, there will not be any action taken. It's just a time for people to come and talk and ask questions, and hopefully we'll have most of the answers by then. Again, we have some questions that are out there that we've not been able to have the time to answer, but as we have the ability and the information, we will provide that information for you out on the city's website under the frequently asked questions section.
And Norm, may I just make it clear, you know this already, but because of a previous commitment that I am not able to change, I will not be in town for either of those dates.
The
Can we do
27th.
that by Zoom?
We can do either one of those by Zoom, yes. So
we're gonna see if I have good reception and where I am in this other
Yes.
important.
yes. And it's also been I've been made aware of council member Meekum will not be here available on the 27th of July, but you should be here on the 1st of August.
I can make the first.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So sorry about that segue. I just wanted to make sure that as we've talked about this budget and a potential property tax increase, that timeline is out there for the council. Also, the mayor sent out an email to the council with some of the FAQs, the information on the everything that's gone out at this point.
And the calculator.
And the calculator. You should be able to point people towards the website and the information that's out there. Again, as we see that there's information that's needed or questions that can or need to be answered, we will do that. But it's not a 2-minute text typically that is something that we can answer. We want to make sure that we have the right information out there, and we will make sure that we have the right information and correct information out there as we answer those questions.
Okay.
All right.
We're ready to move on. We've got 3 issues we really need to address, and that's the other CDRA and the Building Authority, and also the Special Service District. So we need to convene and recess out of this regular city council meeting and convene a meeting for the Community Development and Renewal Agency of Santaquin City. So I need a motion by one of you.
So moved.
And a second.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Councilor Adcock,
Aye.
Councilor Hathaway,
Aye.
Councilor Meekum,
Aye.
Councilor Montoya.
Hi.
That's what it says. Councilor Sidaway.
Aye.
Okay. It's 9:06.
Okay.
Now, what we're going to do is talk about the CDA adoption of the budget for the Community Development and Renewal Agency. The the monies in which we are using, which is separate than the tax money. This is only the CDRA money, and we're working within the Santaquin Peaks Industrial Park.
Yep.
So
So, Mayor and Council, as you know, the renewal agency, board members and chair.
yeah, thanks.
As you know, we're working in the community development and renewal agency to improve the subdivision out there. Basically, what we've done is we've estimated potential revenue that we have coming in this budget year that will carry over, as well as new potential property sales. We've talked about one of those that will be coming to you likely on the next meeting. We have a small property transfer that we need to do, and then from the city to the CDRA, that has been noticed and is out there. So we would encourage you to attend next 2 weeks from now. We will have another CDRA meeting to consider that property sale agreement. But this contemplates basically just, again, continuing to self-fund the improvements out there to be able to have the businesses come to town and getting the development done so that they can do so. So I'm happy to answer any questions. It's a one-pager if you have any questions.
Good.
Looks good.
Then I would entertain a motion to accept Resolution 0501-2023, the adoption of the CDRA.
So moved.
Motion made by Council Member Montoya,
Board-
or Board
Board
Member
member.
Montoya, and seconded by
Second.
Board Member Meekum, who is board. Just checking.
good.
I didn't know. Roll call, Board Member Adcock.
Aye.
Board Member Hathaway.
Aye.
Board Member Meekum.
Aye.
Board Member Montoya.
Aye.
Board Member Sitaway.
Aye.
Seeing that we've passed that budget and we've looked at it, we've got some really good things planned for that. I'm excited to see what we can do in the future with that and with future councils that'll even be able to use it. So I appreciate it very much. Now we need to enter back into a regular city council, so I would ask one of the board members to make a motion to do so.
So moved.
Board Member Montoya, second by
I'll second.
Board Member Sitaway. So, Board Member Adcock,
Aye.
Board Member Hathaway,
Aye.
Board Member Meekum,
Aye.
Board Member Montoya,
Aye.
Board Member Sitaway.
Aye.
9:09. These things are moving through. I like it. We're back in the city council meeting. You guys are all councilmen again and council person. We need to recess to the regular city council again to convene a meeting with the Santaquin Local Building Authority. So I need a motion from one of the council to enter into the Santaquin Local Building Authority.
So moved.
Ty, so, Councilman,
I got it last
Meekum.
time. He can have it this time. I'll get it next time.
good, we'll do it that way. We've got it, we'll do a roll call. Counselor Adcock,
Aye.
Counselor Hathaway,
Aye.
Counselor Meekum,
Aye.
Counselor Montoya,
Aye.
Counselor Sitaway.
Aye.
No, they should say council member. I try to do that all the time. So it's 9:11. We doing okay?
Sure.
So this has to do with the Santaquin Local Building Authority tentative budget for this next year. And in this building authority, this is one of those areas where we're able to take an asset, and there are other things as well, but water in particular. When we have water shares.
So this is the building authority, not the special service district.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right.
I'm one
That's
jump
the
ahead
next
of you.
one.
That's the next one.
Go
You're
ahead.
getting close.
Go ahead.
So, Mayor and
Go.
Council, this is the way that the building for the Public Works building was financed.
Oh, yeah.
Is through the local business building authority several years ago, I want to say 2016. So this just essentially brings money in from the general fund from the city to put into here and then pays the debt service on that public safety building. So it's pretty simple. There's a few small bank charges. There's interest and debt service that's there. But this is something that we do every year, and it's just the way the mechanism that we pay the debt service on the public works building that's down on the north end of town. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
So, no questions. I'll ask for the board member to approve Resolution 0501 for the Santaquin Local Building Authority.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded. Board member Adcock?
Aye.
Board member Hathaway?
Aye.
Board member Meekum?
Aye.
Board member Montoya?
Aye.
Board member Sidaway?
Aye.
We need to go back into a regular city council meeting, so will a board member make a motion to move to back into our city council meeting?
It's your turn, Lynn. I toss to you.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who seconded it?
Lynn.
Dave? Okay. Board member Adcock.
Aye.
Board member Hathaway.
Aye.
Board member Meekum.
Aye.
Board member Montoya.
Hmm.
There's no hum on here.
Aye.
Board member Sidaway.
Aye.
9:12. So we are at 9:13. Close enough. We're back into our regular city council meeting, and since I got one step ahead of us, now we get to recess into from our regular city council to convene a meeting of the Santaquin Special Service District. Jeez, these things always get me tongue-tied.
So moved.
Okay, we
I'll
have
second.
a mover. Do we have a second?
Lynn.
I seconded.
Okay. Counselor Adcock,
Aye.
Counselor Hathaway,
Aye.
Counselor Meekum,
Aye.
Counselor Montoya,
Aye.
Counselor Sidaway.
Aye.
9:14, 9:13. We're doing this fast. So what we need to do is look at the approval of that resolution that I talked about a minute ago for the Special Service District tentative budget. So
again, this is where we have the ability to move water around a little bit differently, and we have about half of our Summit Creek Irrigation Company shares are in the water district, and we pay the assessments out of that. So that's essentially where we're at. Again, there's some other minor costs in there, but for the most part, this is just money coming from the city's general fund into the special service district, and then being paid to the irrigation company for our assessments.
But we're only paying assessments on half of our shares?
Through this mechanism, the other half is through the budget, is through
Okay.
the regular city budget.
Okay.
So again, as the mayor talked about, this mechanism
that's
gives,
okay.
okay.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve Resolution 0501 2023?
So moved.
Wow. Sheesh. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Board member Adcock.
Aye.
Board member Hathaway.
Aye.
Board member Meekum.
Aye.
Board member Montoya.
Aye.
Board member Sidaway.
Aye.
We now need to enter back into the regular city council meeting. I need a motion from a board member to do so.
So moved.
Moved by board member Montoya. Second?
I'll second.
Seconded by board member Hathaway. So board member Adcock.
Aye.
Board member Hathaway.
Aye.
Board member Meekum.
Aye.
Board member Montoya.
Aye.
Board member Sidaway.
Aye.
9:15. I know that's kind of fast. We're now back in our regular city council meeting. I thank you for all of that, and we've gone through a lot of issues tonight that laid the groundwork on some things, answered a lot of questions, maybe even put up a few more questions, and just suggest we keep on top of things. I would also suggest if you have a question with any of the departments that you have a responsibility for, make sure that you even look at those line items to see if there's maybe something you want to check on individually. And that way, that'll be a good way to work with your counterpart and see if we can develop this better. If there are some changes that we could make, I'd like to see them. You know, my eyes are fuzzy at this point, and might be just this point in the meeting, but I've looked at a lot of numbers for the last few months and months and months, so thank you. Let's go straight into the report. So, Jason?
I really don't have anything to report unless you have any questions for me.
Oh, how refreshing. Norm?
Thank you, Jason. Yeah, we've talked about water. I would encourage if members of the public have any questions, go back and review the work session. There's a lot of information there. Again, we've kicked off the informational campaign on the potential property tax increase. It is something that council is considering through the truth and taxation process through the state of Utah. And the final vote on that is going to be on August 1st that the council will consider. I would ask again with the public, if you have questions, please submit it on the website through the form. That's the best way for us to track it. We're not able to monitor. We don't have social media specialists and that kind of thing that are out there all the time. We try to catch as much information as we can, but if you have questions, please submit them on the website. And thank you for your patience in allowing us the time that it takes to be able to answer those questions with the appropriate and accurate information. The water, again, is something that's happening. I would just encourage everybody to please be safe on all the waterways and ditches, and it's not a time to go, even for kids, to go playing in ponds and those types of things. There's a lot of fast-moving water out there, and we want everybody to be safe, so please do so. And so far, we've been very fortunate to bring it off in a fairly controlled manner and a fairly organized manner. So we hope to be able to continue to do that. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have if I haven't already bored you to tears tonight.
I keep watching the color banner on the website, and it stays blue, but if it has to change, it will.
It will. Yes, sir. I'm in constant contact with our emergency manager. He and I text multiple times per day. We look at the water situation morning and night, afternoon, and so yeah, if it needs to change, it will, absolutely. As of right now, everything is still in a monitor position, and again, fortunately, we've not had any issues where we've needed to change that banner.
Good.
Thank you for that.
Good.
Yeah, it is good. It really is.
I have a question for you, Norm. So, you've probably answered this for me before, but I come up to me yesterday thinking about, so I know that when a development comes, we've been doing the money in lieu of.
Uh-huh.
Are we doing that at 100% that all development is money in lieu of, or are we still trying to require at least some water shares?
All of the above. So our current code right now is that if there's water on the land that has been associated with the historical irrigation on the land, we require that water, whether it's be through irrigation company shares or well water rights or whatever it may happen to be. That's our first line of defense. Our second line of defense is that they can do money in lieu of, or there could be the third line of defense is some type of combination. So there's areas that historically have not been watered with irrigation water. I mean, we go back and even look at Google Earth images that are historic to see, you remember we've got the map of the area of the core area of town and areas that were annexed that either required it or didn't, where those requirements have been satisfied. But if they have not been satisfied, our first line of defense for the water is to require the water that has historically been used on that land. The second line of defense is money in lieu of, and the third line of defense is a combination of the two.
Okay.
So
I just wanted to make sure we weren't passing up that.
We are not at 100% cash in lieu of at this point, if that's the question that you're asking. Although I will tell you that there are some developments that have had development agreements out there for more than 20 years that are allowed to do that, that just were set up long before we have the current policy that we have. And so, again, for the public's knowledge, the reason that we do that is because we have a bill coming from CUP when that water turns on. They've told us 2026 essentially is when the tap is going to turn on, and that bill is about $317,000 a year right now, and that's a 40-year bill. So $317,000 a year for 40 years. Right now, I want to say we have about $3 million plus or minus sitting in the bank of the money in lieu of. Have I got that much or am I off? I think it's between $2 and $3 million that are just sitting in the bank, dedicated. It won't be used for anything else, and that money will go towards paying
that assessment,
that cost of the CUP water when it gets here. So again, we need a balance, right? We need to be able to cover that cost because we're contractually obligated for that clear back to 2000, the year 2000, with the Submois agreement, and we also need still wet water. So that's our current policy, and it hasn't changed for several years.
Okay, good. Thanks, Norm.
2.4 million. Your finance director is telling me in my ear that it's 2.4 million. Yeah. Plus, we continue to set aside not only the money in lieu of, but even some of the existing residents have that same contractual obligation to help pay for that water. So there's a combination of some of the user fees that we get go into that, as well as money in lieu of for new development.
Good.
Okay, Dave?
Okay, I got, for coming up for me is Mount Nebo Water is May 8th. And the Sumwa meeting is Thursday at 6. I did meet with John Bradley yesterday on the status of this upcoming celebration. He says they're in really good shape. They're about to send the information to start the booklets. So everything's looking good for that.
I would just remind the council on that there's going to be a combination. It's going to be mostly electronic, but we will have copies available for folks if they want a hard copy of that. Just significant savings in printing costs for a 2-week coverage period.
Which I think was a good move.
Yeah.
I mean,
again, that's just a reminder.
I think it's more convenient.
And then me and Jeff met with John yesterday on the skate park. And we come up with a plan to put on the agenda the concept plan to get phase 1, a concept plan started. We've asked Norm and the mayor to put that on the agenda for next council meeting.
I sent you an email on that.
You sent me an email? I'll look at that. I haven't had time during council meeting.
I just want you to know that this doesn't, this is just for the concept plan. This isn't for site plans or to even get down the road of building it. We could do that whenever, but
Yeah, John's found that it's hard to get other funding sources for it without a design plan, a concept plan. So that is the first step we have to take care of first.
other than that, that's all I got.
I talked to Chief Hurst today about the police department. He said they're doing well. Personnel is good. They're starting to do more zoning enforcement right now, picking up on some of their enforcement codes. They're continuing to watch traffic flow, and there's certain areas of the city where there's just more. It's just more of a tendency to speed, and so they're watching that closer. They are also making progress on the property we talked about before. They've got an agreement with the homeowner to make continual progress, and as long as that's happening, they're going to let that happen. So that was his report. We had the gentleman from the Chamber of Commerce here at the last city council meeting, and I think they call him the president, right? I think it's the president. Director. I knew it wasn't president, but I couldn't remember what it was. The director.
The doctor.
And they're working hard to try to help the businesses in their city and get more involved. He did a great job. I like his attitude and where they're going with that. So I think they'll make great headway in our city.
Do you know he was a professional golfer?
I didn't
He
know
was.
that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was.
Huh.
doesn't surprise me, but yeah,
Nice guy.
nice guy.
Good
Anyway,
idea.
and I have not had any success or done anything on the funding for the library yet, so I'm still waiting on that one. Everything else is good in my area.
Okay. Jeff?
I just want to remind everyone of the art festival Saturday. Looks like it's going to be really good. It's going to be Apple Valley. Originally, they were going to do Santaquin Elementary, but got moved over to Apple Valley. I think it's, is it 10 to 2? I think.
Sure,
Colleen
sounds
might
great.
know.
I think that's right. That sounds right. I couldn't convince my son to submit anything for plein air, but maybe next year. On trying to get some more UTA stops in town, I emailed Mary, not sure how to pronounce her last name, so we'll just call her Mary at UTA. And I emailed her back in February. I need to follow up. She said that they're going to have a meeting with Santaquin and Payson in the coming months.
We had that last week.
Okay, she didn't email me and follow, so she said she was going to let me know about that so I could go. How did that go then?
So it was just a meeting to kind of talk about and coordinate on how to address transit type issues. I mean, really for Santaquin's purposes, it's busing.
Yeah.
This has been a story we've talked with her about for a while, and she and the folks at UTA do understand the city's desire to maybe have more of a loop or expanded bus stops rather than just on Main Street. So it's just a continual effort to work with their Mary Schaefer
Yeah.
and other UTA personnel on that idea.
Okay, so I guess we just got to keep begging.
Been in the works
good
for a
contact and
long
continue to
time.
just,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that we just keep pushing.
Right.
Yeah, it's 10 to 2.
So the art festival.
Oh, 10 to 2.
10 to 2.
That's what I said, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah. Art?
Well, some of my assignments are the public works and the fire department and EMS and engineering. And a year ago, I tried to meet with them once a week, and then I moved it to once a month. And they've all let me know that the best thing I could do to help them is to stay out of the way.
Art, you and me are in the same boat.
So that's what I'm doing. I am a resource. They know how to get a hold of me. And
Get out of the way.
I don't take that. I just jump in. And that's why they hate me sometimes. I kind of enjoy that.
you have the mental, I don't. I do appreciate sincerely how much all of our departments in the city do, but especially now with the water, public works, and staff, and helping us to hopefully stay dry. So, thank you.
Good.
And I really enjoy working with this crazy bunch of people.
Why'd you look at me?
You want to report?
Council member?
You want to report on the museum?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Here we go.
Gotta remember, it's
Sure.
9:30.
Okay, I'm so excited about the Healthy City designation. That really has been something. The very first year they came out, I contacted John, and I have tormented him every year since then, and I am really excited about that. It's been a long time coming. And the other thing that will be a long time coming when it's done is the loop, because I had 9 or 10 very specific goals when I ran for office, and 3 of those at least had to do with roads. Getting Summit Ridge Parkway through, getting Highland through, and redoing the intersection of Highland and Center Street, and getting Main Street through. And they have all been done, thanks to staff and support of other elected officials. And so even though the song that comes to mind when I think of how long it takes things to get done is the ox cart, the primary song, the ox cart. The seeds are planted, and the effort continues, and I really, really appreciate that. Okay, you City Council helped with the city egg hunts, both the teen egg hunt and the egg hunt for younger kids, which I understand was quite an adventure. I was out of town, and the youth council had a blast scattering eggs on the pavement because there were still several inches of snow on the grass, on the ball fields, and the eggs would break open because of the hard pavement, so they ran around trying to put the eggs back together, and they just laughed and had a wonderful time. And those events are always so much better with the youth participation, so I really love them. They are going to help with the Memorial Day breakfast coming up that the fire department hosts, and so watch for information about that, and the youth will be bussing tables and as they have in previous years. 2 scholarships were awarded to our 2 graduating seniors this year, and they'll be presented to them this coming Monday at the Payson High School Awards Night, and then I will invite each of them to come to a council meeting so that they can be recognized here too. They're 2 awesome young women who were both founding members, original members of the Youth Council that I created in 2019, and they have put in, between the 2 of them, hundreds of hours of service in our community. They're just darling, delightful, wonderful rays of sunshine in our community. All right, for the library, Jen Wagner, the librarian, was recently awarded a $27,000 digital equity grant, which is fantastic. Only 3 cities in the country, I believe, received a digital equity grant, and one of them, I think, was New York City. And so we were one of the 3, which is so exciting. She's doing an amazing job. John Bradley also took a chance and applied for a grant from the Ash Grove Charitable Foundation, specifically to go toward the library fund, and we received $25,000 from the Ash Grove Charitable Foundation toward the library fund. So that is building ever so slowly, and we keep working on that. The summer reading kickoff will be June 6th. So watch for more information coming about that, and get those kids reading over the summer and participating in those fun activities. And then for the museum, we are still waiting to hear on the grant that John submitted for the concept design of the museum. And we will be looking at Plan B or C if that grant does not come through, but we are hoping. So more will be coming over the summer on that, hopefully. And then the art showcase has been going on upstairs at the museum. Super talented junior high kids. Thanks to Kyle Vincent and Annette Bott and Katie for organizing that. And Kyle puts a display together, and Annette and Katie are there welcoming people to look at it. And just such a treat to view the artwork of those talented youth. There is also a new display in the works, which I understand Mayor Olson is going to help do some cutting and constructing for, and it's going to be a pipeline exhibit that will be interactive for visitors, and it will include a marble run so that kids can learn the flow of water and how that works in a water pipeline system. So that is being funded with the RAP tax, and I'm really excited to see that and have more interactive elements in the museum. Twice in the last week, I no longer have young children, but I do have lots of young children in my life and in my heart, and twice in the last week I was really, my preschool students just said, please come and watch me play soccer. So I went out to Harvest View twice in the last week, and what a delight to see all those fields filled with children getting fresh air and running, and parents and grandparents cheering them on. The pickleball courts are full, the playground is full, there's a line at the concession stand, the parking lot is full. It just thrills my heart, because when my children, who are now all taller than I am, played city soccer, we were on the cemetery or behind Santaquin Elementary or behind the museum. And if you had kids in different age groups, you had to go all over town and hit and miss. And anyway, so that's just a wonderful facility, and what a thrill it is to see it used and see a lot of happy people. And a shout out of thanks to Jason Calloway and his Public Works team. The other day I was out on my neighborhood walk, and a group of young men and a bishop from a local congregation were out helping to clean up a property on 900 East where the side yard has not been landscaped. And it's tricky there because there's a right-of-way easement, and that's where a trail was supposed to go, and there are utilities and stuff like that. So they were out cleaning it up and raking and trimming and things like that. And I contacted Jason and asked if he and his team would be willing to go and pick up the debris that was raked and trimmed and haul it away, because the homeowner wasn't able to do that and didn't have a means to do that. And those guys went out and cleaned up those piles of debris. So thanks to everybody involved in that. And we just live in a great place.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further on that pipe, what I've got to do is take my Mini-X up to the wooden pipe with staves on it and excavate it out and cut it out, but put a pig inside of it, inflatable pig, so that I can get it off the mountain without breaking it. And so I've actually got the bike committee helping me. And so with that, the bike committee met last night on the park and how things are going. And we're trying to turn a couple of corners here with starting to make new trails by hand rather than dig them all, so that we've got one-way trails. And with that, I have a meeting tomorrow with Luke Decker with the Forest Service. We're going to talk about making sure the NEPA papers are done and that we're ready to go into Pole Canyon. I hiked that the other day, and we're thinking about doing the same thing on that upper part. Every place that we can make trails with just going by hand, we're going to do that. So got a lot of commitment in doing that. It's going to be a lot of fun to see it progress. I'm also meeting tomorrow night with Mark Farmer, and he will be here doing a presentation on closing trails, but one of them is opening a brand new trail for us that will be on his maps to bring it down from Kester's Grove to Ted Allen Park out to the west or the south interchange. And so that's moving along really good. I did need to ask, did we get that receipt sent to Joel Kester for the easement?
I still need to visit with legal counsel on that, and I'll get that done this week.
Yeah, could we do that? I'd like to do that because that's important for another issue that's coming up, and I want to
we'll get
follow up. Okay. And then tonight, in our first meeting, I had to step out. That was Senator Owen's staff that was calling, and Federal Highways called this afternoon, and the canyon bid opening will be, or the canyon RFP, so the request for proposals will be going out on the 15th of May. Now, they must be working from past information, so they're going forward with that and then take anything into account that would go along with the flooding. And the contract for opening the road will be given out on the 15th of June, which is months ahead of what we had anticipated before, and all the funding's set and ready to go. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they have to dig snow before they get to the top. I don't know. But more than anything, the wheels are moving. She sent me the link to the SAM's page and the proposal information. I said, can I send it on to contractors that might be interested? She said, more than welcome. Sunrock has already responded and said, we're in, thanks. And so we've got locals that are bidding on it, ready to go. Lastly, I've been asked to speak at the Move Utah Summit. This is a consortium of UDOT, MAG, who else is on that list? Wasatch Front Regional Council, the Department of Health and Human Services, Public Safety, Highway Patrol. They'll have 400 people that want to come to this conference, and they've said I could go all day, but I think talking for an hour is about all I want to do. But the reason I bring it up is probably I can talk. According to Lynn, I could probably talk for an hour, and you know what? I've done it a few times.
10 o'clock.
But what I want to ask you guys, this is Get Healthy Utah, and to me, there've been a lot of things that have happened, and it's not just a bike trail. You know, the healthy is in the mind, the healthy is in the work ethic, the healthy is in taking care of your neighbor. There's a lot of things. Taking care of the senior citizens, finding new ways to do things. How is our own biking trails doing? And what I want to ask of you five and you two are thoughts or ideas that you think I maybe should include that would certainly be effective. I'm speaking with Jay Silvestri, the mayor of whatever it is, the
Mill Creek.
Mill Creek.
Mill-
Yeah,
Mayor Silvestrini.
yeah, the
Yes.
ULCT guy, president,
Yeah.
and a couple of other mayors. So, you know, a lot of this has to do with the award that we received. I handed papers off to John tonight with people that have contacted us to go further for grants to help us with this. And so we'll be looking through that, seeing if we can find more funding to bring in more trail or trail ties or places where you say it ends, we should fix, if we can find other funding such as this. Going to this and speaking is not necessarily something I would look for or forward to, but I think we need to tell our story. And that story comes from you five and you two, and will help me kind of put this into the right perspective. I would appreciate, I've got until the 24th is when I speak, so if you have some ideas, just shoot them to me. Even if it's redundant between us all, it's like, okay, well, that's where we need to go. But if one of you will come up with something that says, hey, what about this? There's so many good things that I want to make sure that we're hitting on. And it's not just a big blowout on the bike park. There's just way too much more for this city and good people. So please submit something to me. Just send me an email with some thoughts on it. Even if they're one sentence thoughts, I'll be good with that. Okay? I appreciate everything that you do, and I look forward to the completion of this meeting tonight by asking for someone to give a motion to get us home to
So
bed.
moved.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's moved and passed.